Chapter 1. Knots and Jewelry. Knotting can add a different effect to your jewelry. Depending on the material being used, it can add a natural or outdoorsy feel. I tend to lean more towards natural colors and this effect. However, don't limit yourself. If you preferred bright colors, there are dyed cords that you can use instead. You can also use a clear thread to create a very unique effect. Remember to experiment and see where you are most comfortable and what you find to be the most appealing to you and others. I add beads to my knotted jewelry all of the time. I think beads really bring a piece to life. You don't have to use beads. You can do simple knotted pieces blended with beads, or a mixture of both. Remember, there is really no right or wrong preference. If you like the idea of adding something to your pieces, but don't feel beads are your style, experiment with different things like buttons, sequins, or even trinkets. The key to making jewelry is to be creative. If you have a recurring theme in your jewelry, try new ways to emphasize this theme and branch out. A really important tip here: when choosing a cord and corresponding beads or buttons, pay attention to how big an opening you have. If your bead has too small a hole, you may not be able to get your cord through it. If the hole is too large, it may want to slide over your knots. Pay attention and choose beads and cord that will work together, both color and function-wise. This will make the creation process easier and the end product much more satisfying. Easy hemp earrings. Difficulty: easy. Estimated time to completion: approximately 10 minutes. For each earring, you will need 2 pieces of hemp approximately 2 feet long, 1 bead of your choice, and 1 earring hook. If you are working with dyed hemp, choose a bead that complements the color of the hemp itself. Step 1. Thread both strands of hemp through the hole at the bottom of the earring hook. Fold the strands in half so you have 4 strands. Where the strands form a kind of loop is where your earring hook should be. Step 2. Thread the bead onto the 2 strands in the middle. Step 3. Make an overhand knot with all 4 strands under the bead to secure it. Step 4. Form a loop with the right strand by taking it and crossing it over the 2 middle strands. Step 5. Now take and cross the left strand over the right strand. Step 6. Take the left strand under the middle strands and through the loop. Step 7. Now pull tight, but not too tight. The knot will look funny if it is pulled too tight. Step 8. Now do the same thing, but this time starting from the left side. Form a loop with the left strand by crossing it over the middle 2 strands. Step 9. Cross the right strand over the left strand. Step 10. Take the right strand under the middle strands and through the loop on the left side. Step 11. Pull the knot tight. Step 12. Continue to do this until you have made a total of 9 knots, 5 that started on the right side and 4 that started on the left side. Step 13. Make another overhand knot to secure the knots. Step 14. Trim the excess cord. Step 15. Repeat for the second earring to make a pair. Style tip: add beads to the bottom under the last overhand knot for added design and color. You can use any style or color bead that suits your preference. Fun, colorful bracelet. Difficulty: intermediate. Estimated time to completion: 1 hour. For the first part of this project, you will need some cube beads, paint, a paintbrush, and some Mod Podge. An easy and less messy alternative for the paints are paint pens, but be sure you use pens with the right tip for your purposes. They come in fine, medium, or thick. I bought this pack of simple wooden craft beads for $1 at the dollar store. You can also use ones that haven't been painted a base color, or even alter the color and design on the beads with your paint. Step 1. Separate out 4 different colored beads and 4 different colored paints. Don't put the same colors next to each other, though. Step 2. Paint the letters on each bead to spell out the word love. Make sure the holes are going up and down, not side to side. Paint the same letter on all sides of each bead, except the top and bottom. The top and bottom should have holes. Remember, these instructions are easily altered for your purposes. While I did the word love for this project, you can use a person's name and even inspirational words as well. Step 3. After the paint dries, you want to seal each painted side with Mod Podge or a similar type product. I have used clear nail polish as an alternative when nothing else is available. Technically, this is not a required step, but since acrylic paint is water-soluble, it is a good idea. Step 4. While the Mod Podge is drying, get 3 7-foot pieces of your chosen cord. I'm using hemp. Fold the strands in half. It is important to remember when you are working with hemp that it has a tendency to fray, not only on the ends, but also on the sides of the strands. This can not only be a nuisance, but if you are running your fingers along the strand, you can get hemp splinters, which are very painful and hard to get out. Step 5. Now make an overhand knot. You should now have 6 strands of cord below the knot. Step 6. Separate the 6 strands into 3 groups, left, middle, and right. Step 7. Take and cross the right strands over the middle strands. Step 8. Take the left strands and go over the right strands. Step 9. Now take the left strands and go under the middle strands and through the loop made by the right strands. It sounds harder than it is. It's really easy. Step 10. Now pull it tight. Step 11. Start again, starting from the left this time. Cross the left strands over the middle strands. Step 12. Take the right strands and cross over the left strands. Step 13. Take the right strands under the middle strands and through the loop on the left side and pull tight. It is important to remember not to pull too tight. Just pull tight enough so it is not loose. Step 14. Continue steps 7 through 13 until your strands look similar to mine. A good way to check is by counting the loops on both the left and right side. At this point, mine has 3 on the right and 4 on the left. Please remember when you are making this bracelet that it is measured to my wrist and that my wrist is very small. In the next steps, you may want to add more knots than I show. You want the first bead to sit about where your wrist bone is. Step 15. Now, I want you to separate the strands so you have 3 on the left and 3 on the right. There should be no middle strands, just left and right strands. We are going to be doing the same thing we did above, but working in 2 separate sections. Step 16. Starting with 3 strands on the right, take the left strand and cross it over the middle strand. Step 17. Cross the right strand over the left strand. Step 18. Take the right strand under the middle strand and through the loop on the left side. Step 19. Pull tight, but not too tight. Step 20. Now repeat starting with the right strand. Cross it over the middle strand. Step 21. Cross the left strand over the right strand. Step 22. Take the left strand under the middle strand and through the loop on the right. Step 23. Now, pull tight. Step 24. Continue steps 16 through 23 until you have the length you want. Again, you want the first bead to rest on your wrist bone. Step 25. Once you have the correct length, do the same on the 3 strands on the left. Step 26. Using the 2 inner strands, insert one through the top of the first bead and the other through the bottom so it is sitting sideways. Step 27. Pull the strands so the bead is nice and snug. It may want to loosen up, but once you start working with the strands again, it will stay in place. Step 28. Repeat steps 16 through 25. Step 29. Put the second bead on the same way you did the first. Step 30. Repeat steps 16 through 25. Step 31. Bead on the third bead. Step 32. Repeat steps 16 through 25. Step 33. Bead on the fourth bead. Step 34. Repeat steps 16 through 25. Step 35. Now group the strand into 3 sections again and repeat steps 7 through 14. Step 36. Now bead a 5th bead on the 4 middle strands. Step 37. Tie an overhand knot, cut the excess, and you are done. This technique can be altered to accommodate different words. Try making one that spells out joy. Remember to adjust the number of knots so it's the correct length. Style tip: use colored cords for added flair. Daisy necklace. Difficulty: intermediate. Estimated time to completion: 1 hour. For this necklace, you will need some type of cord. I'll be using hemp and these Just Daisies buttons from Favorite Findings. I found them at my local Super Walmart. Step 1. Cut 2 pieces of cord measuring approximately 10 feet 9 inches. Step 2. Fold both pieces in half and tie an overhand knot to form a loop at the top. Step 3. You should now have 4 pieces of cord under your overhand knot. Separate them into 3 groups, 2 strands in the middle, and 1 on each of the left and right sides. Step 4. If you already know how to do these knots, move ahead. Starting on the right, or the left if you are left-handed, make a loop by crossing the right strand over the 2 middle strands. Step 5. Cross the left strand over the right strand. Step 6. Now take the left strand behind the middle strands and through the loop on the right. Step 7. Now pull tight. Do the same starting with the left side. Make a loop by crossing the left strand over the middle strands. Step 8. Cross the right strand over the left strand. Step 9. Now take the right strand behind the middle strands and through the loop on the left. Step 10. Pull tight. Step 11. Continue to make knots starting on the right, then left, until you have made 29 knots on one side and 30 knots on the other side. A good way to keep track is by counting the humps on each side. Step 12. Now thread on one of your small daisy buttons on all 4 strands. Step 13. Continue making knots. Make 12 knots on one side and 13 knots on the other. Step 14. Thread a medium-sized daisy button on all 4 strands. Step 15. Continue making knots. You should have 12 on one side and 13 on the other. Step 16. Thread another small daisy button onto all 4 strands. Step 17. Continue making knots until you have made 29 on one side and 30 on the other. The key is to make the necklace symmetrical. Step 18. Now, thread a small daisy button on all 4 strands. This is going to act as a closure. Step 19. Tie an overhand knot and trim the excess. When you tie the overhand knot, make sure the button is in the knot. You now have your daisy necklace. To close the necklace, just use the daisy button on one end and the loop at the other to button it closed. Chapter Review. Remember, knotted jewelry can be made with a variety of things, not just hemp and bead exclusively. Also, when designing or picking out materials for a jewelry piece, keep the comfort of the wearer in mind. Chapter Key Points. Key point number 1. Choose your cord wisely. Comfort can make all the difference. Both cotton cord and hemp get softer as time goes on. Keep the comfort of the wearer in mind when choosing the design and material. Key point number 2. Beads give life to your knotted jewelry. Adding brightly colored beads or buttons to a neutral colored cord can give the piece the extra thing that it needs. Key point number 3. Be creative and use different materials. Find different things that can be worked into your jewelry. Different shaped buttons may just be the thing you need to make a truly unique piece. Key point 4. You don't have to make knotted jewelry with only hemp. Don't just use one material all the time. Experiment a little. Key point 5. Using a button or bead as a closure in knotted jewelry is the easiest way to go. Using a bead closure keeps your piece in the same theme. It's also the easiest way to finish a piece off.